Yesterday, Amyy mentioned that we disagree about something, so let's get into it.
First impressions.
I think first impressions are mostly accurate. I think the instinct you get in the first 30 seconds of meeting someone tells you something real about them, something you should pay attention to.
And I think first impressions are mostly wrong. I think they tell you far more about your own assumptions than about the actual person in front of you.
Okay, so neither of us is budging on this.
Probably not.
Let's make the case. You go first.
I once met someone at a design conference who I immediately disliked before he had finished his first sentence. Something about the way he carried himself felt arrogant. The way he looked around the room while talking to me, I thought, this person is not someone I want to know.
And
6 months later, he recommended me for the best project I had in that entire year, and we ended up working together for 2 years. He is one of the most generous collaborators I have ever had.
that is a good example, but it proves something slightly different from what you think it proves.
Tell me.
You notice something real, the looking around, the energy, your instinct correctly read that something was off. Where went wrong was in the interpretation. You read anxiety as arrogance, but the signal was real.
That is a very convenient reframe.
Maybe. But here's my version. I once started a new job, and within the first week I had a strong feeling about one particular colleague, something about the way he spoke in meetings, how he framed things. I thought, this person is someone I can trust. Not friendly necessarily, but trustworthy in the work sense.
And
3 years later, he was the person I went to when something was genuinely difficult. Every single time, he was exactly what I had sensed. Careful, honest, no politics in what he said.
so you got lucky.
Or I read something real.
Or both.
Or both.
Here is what I actually think is happening in those first 30 seconds. You are not reading the person, you are reading the performance. What they have learned to put out into the world, their social surface, and that surface is often specifically designed to manage exactly the kind of impression you are forming.
That is a dark view of social interaction.
It is a realistic one. Everyone at a networking event or a job interview or a first meeting is managing how they come across. Some people are very good at this, some are terrible at it. Your first impression is measuring that skill, not the person underneath it.
I do not fully disagree with that, but I think something leaks through the surface even when people are performing the way someone responds when something unexpected happens. The micro moment when their guard drops. You can catch those.
If you are paying close enough attention, most people are not.
Most people are paying attention to what they are going to say next.
Exactly.
So real first impressions, the ones that are actually reading something true, require a quality of attention that most people are not bringing to a first meeting.
Which is why most first impressions are wrong, not because the signal is not there, because we are not actually listening well enough to receive it.
That might be the thing we actually agree on.
It might be.
Let's talk about what people are actually responding to in those first 30 seconds, because it is worth understanding the mechanics.
Research suggests it is mostly nonverbal. Eye contact, posture, tone of voice, the words barely register at the beginning.
I believe that I once watched a colleague give a presentation, and I remember almost nothing of what he said in the first 2 minutes, but I remember that he walked in slowly, looked at the room before he started, and did not apologize for being there. That landed before a single word did.
Did not apologize for being there. That is an interesting phrase.
A lot of people start a presentation or walk into a new situation in a slightly apologetic way. Physically, they make themselves a little smaller, they look at the floor, they rush to fill the silence, and it reads not as humility, but as uncertainty.
Whereas the person who pauses before speaking reads as someone who believes what they are about to say is worth waiting for.
Which may or may not be true.
Which may or may not be true, but that is the impression.
So the first impression is partly being formed before you open your mouth, and by the time you do speak, you are either confirming or complicating what the other person has already started to decide.
Which is slightly terrifying when you think about it.
Or freeing, because if the nonverbal registers first, you have more control than you think. You are not dependent entirely on having exactly the right words.
You are saying, relax your body, and the words will land better.
I am saying that, and I believe it. When I am teaching and I feel uncertain about something, the students know before I do. Something in the way I am standing, the way my eyes move. They do not know exactly what I am uncertain about, but they sense the uncertainty.
And the opposite.
When I know the material well and I am genuinely interested in the room, something flows differently. The class goes differently. I have had days where I felt completely prepared and the class was flat, and days where I walked in with one idea and 2 hours passed in what felt like 20 minutes.
What was different?
I think it was whether I was actually in the room, whether I was present with those specific people on that specific day, or whether I was running a version of a class I had run before.
You are back to presence.
I am always back to presence.
I want to push back on something you said earlier, though. You said something leaks through even when people are performing. But what about the people who have specifically trained themselves to project something? They are not actors, politicians, con artists.
Con artists are not a normal case.
No, but they illustrate the edge of the argument. If someone is skilled enough, they can make the leakage look intentional. They can perform the micro-expressions, the involuntary signals.
That is true, and I think it means first impressions have a ceiling. They can be manipulated by people who know how to manipulate them. So I would not say, trust your gut completely and never revisit. I would say, your first impression is data. It is not a verdict.
Data, not verdict. I can agree with that.
And bad data if you are not paying attention.
Which brings us back to the quality of attention you are bringing to the meeting.
Full circle.
I think there is something in here for anyone learning English specifically, because when you are operating in a second language, a big portion of your attention is taken up by the language itself. Am I finding the right word? Did I understand what they just said? What tense should this be?
And that leaves less attention for everything else.
So your read on the first impression is even more incomplete than a native speaker's because your cognitive bandwidth is split.
Which is actually an argument for getting more comfortable with the language, not to become perfect, but to free up enough bandwidth to actually be present with the person in front of you.
That is a generous reframe of why fluency matters.
It is not about impressing anyone. It is about having enough room in your head to actually see the person you are talking to.
I like that. I had not thought about fluency that way before.
Neither had I, until just now.
This is what happens when we disagree. We end up somewhere neither of us started.
Better than both of us being right.
Here is where we leave you today. In the next 30 seconds of meeting someone new, what are you actually paying attention to? And when you replay it later, do you trust what you noticed?
Or do you do what Amyy did and argue with someone about their own whereabouts?
That was one time.
One very committed time. One thing we have not talked about yet. What happens when your first impression is clearly wrong and you know it almost immediately?
Tell me more.
You meet someone first 30 seconds, you have formed something, then they say one thing and the whole picture shifts, not gradually, suddenly.
That has happened to me. I met a woman at a workshop last year, very put together. Spoke carefully. I had already decided. Formal, a little guarded, probably easier to admire from a distance than to actually know. Then someone asked her what she did outside of work and she said, I am trying to learn to keep bees. I have killed 4 colonies so far. I love it.
And the whole image cracked.
Completely, she became one of the most interesting people in the room in one sentence.
The unexpected detail, the thing that does not fit the surface.
It is almost always the thing that does not fit.
I think this is why the small talk question of what do you do outside of work is so much more revealing than what do you do for work. Your job is something you chose in part for how it looks to the world. Your bees are just yours.
Your bees that you keep killing.
Passionately.
The thing that reveals a person is almost always the thing they do badly and love anyway.
That is a beautiful sentence.
I thought about it just now, and I am quite pleased with it.
What is yours? The thing you do badly and love anyway.
Cooking elaborate things I am not yet skilled enough to make. I will decide. I want to make something that requires 3 days of preparation and 4 techniques I have never tried. It usually goes wrong in at least 2 places. I do it anyway.
I sing when I'm surfing, paddling out, waiting for a wave. I sing. I'm a genuinely poor singer. This is not false modesty, But out there with no one around, it does not matter. It is just the song and the water.
I had no idea.
Nobody does. That is the point.
See, I have known you for 2 years of making this podcast, and I just learned something real about you.
Because you asked the right question.
Or you answered it honestly.
Both things have to happen.
Both things have to happen. That is actually what a first impression cannot give you the honest answer to a real question. Because the real questions come later, when the guard has dropped a little, when the performance has relaxed.
So first impressions tell you something, but the person reveals themselves over time, through the unguarded moments.
And the bad bees.
And the songs no one hears.
I want to bring this back to something practical for a moment because I think there is something useful here for anyone navigating English-speaking social environments.
Go ahead.
If you are worried about first impressions, if you feel that your English is not good enough to make the impression you want to make, the answer is not to perfect your opening line. The answer is to ask a genuine question.
Because a genuine question does two things. It takes the pressure off you, and it puts the other person in a position where they can reveal something real.
And the moment they reveal something real, you are no longer being evaluated by a first impression. You are in a conversation.
The best thing that can happen to you in a first meeting in English is to ask something that makes the other person forget they are meeting you for the first time.
Something like, what are you trying to get better at right now? Or, what is the most interesting thing that happened to you this week? Or, something as simple as, what made you come to this event today?
None of those are complicated English, but they shift everything.
Because the answer matters more than the question. And when something actually matters, the language follows.
That is worth writing down.
When something actually matters, the language follows.
We have been saying this for 2 months in different ways. Honest language, specific language, language that comes from something real, it always lands better than the perfectly constructed version.
Always.
Your first impression of someone is the beginning of a question, not the end of one.
That is my position now. I am updating.
And my position is, the instinct is data, but only if you are actually paying attention when you collect it.
We did not fully agree.
We did not fully agree.
That is fine. We leave you with this. Next time you meet someone, notice what you decide in the first 30 seconds. Hold it loosely. Then ask them one question that does not have a professional answer.
And see who shows up.
See you tomorrow on Jamyy English.
We will be here.